I wanted to make something that was kind. I wanted to make a nice portrait of childhood, and not in the way that Hollywood shows children, you know, trying to make something sentimental or something. It's supposed to be what kids might think is cool kind of thing. I wanted to make something that I thought was real, genuine portrait. So I wrote it based on everything that the kids said and did, and what I thought they'd feel comfortable doing while working on the film. And like one example, which seems kind of odd, but it was something Willis said, the thing about the time machine. She saw a nativity scene when she was 4, and she said, "I think that box holds the body of the dead grown-up Jesus, and he's going to show it to the baby Jesus." And so everything in there has to do with them and who they are as people.
Well, that's not entirely off base, because isn't frankincense an embalming agent?
Yes, it was, and it also, I found out, I was talking to this gentleman who's a monk from Switzerland, and he said that when I told him that, he goes, that's something, he goes, there's this thing about how all that stuff was written long after the death, and so it was all meant to tie together and be symbolic of each other.
So how much of the dialogue was improvised, and how much were you
just ignore
sort of suggesting the ideas for scenes with them?
It was
why don't you use our microphone? It's a small room. I think we can project.
Yeah.
They can't hear you at the back. Thank you very much.
Now the question was what was the how much was improvised? I wrote a 30-minute screenplay and said I'm going to make an approximately 60-minute film, and went out to do so. A lot of it was kept pretty much straight to the script. Some of it I had written scenes with ideas that I wanted to cover. I kind of look at this the way it's put together and edited and everything, being more like a painting. And so there were certain things that happened organically that matched my intentions for certain things I had written. There was one scene that happened in a park with a scooter where they sang sort of spontaneously, but it was written. And then Johnny just covered it when some car alarm went off and just started singing along with it. And I was like, all right, that's better than what I had. So it was half and half.
And I mean, the locations around New York, did you get filming permits, or did you just kind of do it Gonzo style and go out with the camera and hope for the best?
Yeah, I went out with 2 cameras and some little kids, and nobody asked questions. That's how we filmed in Penn Station. You have to do official things to do such a thing, but we just went in and started filming, and nobody cared.
Like you said at the beginning, it's very much a different change of style to your 2 previous films. The American Astronaut and Stingray Sam, which are black and white, were kind of musicals and had a sort of a structure around, I guess, almost like being a traditional musical, or this was much more sort of freeform. What made you want to do a film in this style?
Well, in doing a portrait of childhood, one thing that inspired me a lot was really the first seasons of Sesame Street. I wanted to use their format to make a film, and in Sesame Street they would talk about something, and then suddenly someone would say, pigs, and then you'd see movies about pigs with some song playing, and it's just these little vignettes. So I wanted to structure a small feature that way, and treat that as a musical, because I mean those are musicals. Those episodes, there's all singing and all sorts of things. But I also, my other films are always very structured and storyboarded, and the films look like the storyboards. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit more free, which I thought was more in keeping with the children, or with children in general. Even the camera motions and the edits, and using what I call dirty edits, where we just pick things based on the composition rather than the focus or anything, and the way that jerky movements worked in and out of each other and everything. I thought it was very kind of young and free and fresh.
Well, I really like that sequence where she's trying to wrestle him off some railings. And you cut to various other brief shots of them, you know, kind of like wrestling for supremacy, I guess.
Right. Yeah, there was plenty to choose from.
The weird thing about watching it is you get so used to depictions of predators of children in movies, and so you immediately think that the adults are up to no good. You know, and it's weird seeing a film where the kids are just completely safe, you know, from beginning to end.
Yeah, well, you know, the weird, evil adults are, you know, much rarer than, you know, than we think, because we see them in our homes on television every day, you know. But, you know, just the fact that there's an adult male trying to connect with children is like, you know, it's like M, you know. So, so I wanted to have two adult males as the only, because most of the film's shot from the child's perspective. It's, you know, waist down is their landscape. But I wanted to have two adult males. One who's the Cyclops in the park, who's, you know, kind of simple, and he's just trying to connect with the kids. And then the other one who, you know, when he comes and grabs them, it seems horrifying, but to him, it's horrifying that these kids should be underneath an overpass. He's actually a really good guy, and but he's the great threat because he's really trying to do something for the kids and trying to bring them back into the real world, and so he's, you know, he represents the real world. Another thing in the landscape is capturing all the graphics. One thing I like about this, which is something I wanted to do, is have a film that would change with time. So I kept it all very organic to now, like those Dorito bags, you know, in the store. In 10 years, they won't look like that anymore. So when you see them, they'll feel different too. And all the beer bottles and garbage and everything that they're looking for stars in is going to evolve as time goes on. And so 10 years from now, when you see Johnny in these little dollar store cheapo Croc shoes, you know, running around, I mean, those things aren't going to probably be common. You know? So it's making a little time capsule that will. The film will change, and your perception of the film will change as it gets older.
Well, and in so much that any film becomes a time machine, the more time passes since it was shot.
Yeah.
I mentioned Joyce at the beginning, mainly because of your intertitles, the characters being called Cyclops and a section being called Underworld, which very much kind of evoke, at least for me, Joyce's vision of Ulysses in Dublin. Was that anything that was inspirational to you?
Well, the Greek myths, my wife was reading them to Willa at the time I was writing it, and or around that time. And she, I realized that those characters they're common in children's, you know, cartoons and everything. It's in their, they know these characters. But I wanted to use them to create this journey for the kids, because they're definitely on a journey in this film, and help create in their eyes this fantasy world, which is what the whole film is supposed to be, is this fantasy. I was going to say, one thing it has in common with my other two features, Stingray Sam and the American Astronaut, is they all start with star charts. So, yeah, this one does too. And there's a lot of things that actually I find as I watch it, they weave together. But anyway, that was the side track. But yeah, it was. I wanted to use those images and those characters and to make what's happening in the world seem grander. Like the fact that the giant is a threat, and he is a giant to them. And the Cyclops, that was Greg Cook from the American Astronaut. He was the boy who saw a woman's breast, and he got attacked. Some guys jumped him and they cut his throat and they slit his face. Yeah, it was horrible. And so, and he's older now and he's kind of burly and he goes, "Hey, you got a part for Sparta?" You know, and I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah, Greg." So, so I said, "Can you see that scar across your eye?" You know, and he goes, "Well, I could shave my eyebrow there. You'll be able to see it real well." I'm like, "No, don't do that. Just keep your eye closed." And so he did, and it was very effective. That made our Cyclops. He has this organic scar and his eyes closed the whole time he's talking, and so that created that character. And then Willa spells it out in her map.
I was reading Michael Chabon, who wrote The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. He did a collection of essays a couple of years ago called Manhood for Amateurs. And in that, one of his pieces is about how he remembers being a kid and how it was really common for kids just to play in abandoned lots and on the street, and that's something you just don't see anymore. And in that sense, this film seems to be very much kind of like, you know, evoking almost a lost world in terms of the freedom that children have these days.
Well, when I mentioned Sesame Street, we bought the first season of Sesame Street, to show the kids, and there's a warning at the beginning saying not intended for preschoolers, because they're out running around in junkyards and jumping off of things, and you've got Jesse Jackson saying I am a human being, and all this stuff that's very you wouldn't show that to preschoolers now. But I mean, the stuff they have now, it's interesting that the people who make Sesame Street now were raised on Sesame Street, and if you go on YouTube, you can see Stevie Wonder playing Satisfaction when it was a hit, and it's like a 7-minute jam. And they did that for kids. Now they're like, this is how you bounce a ball, and it's really boring, and great. So anyway, yeah, yes. The answer was yes.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Cory? At the back.
Is that me?
Yeah, we'll take that.
I was just wondering, do you live in New York now? You actually live in New York now?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you actually grow up in New York yourself? Did you have your own childhood in New York?
No, I grew up in San Francisco, or just outside of San Francisco, and then when I became a young adult, I moved into San Francisco and worked as the head of security in nightclubs. So you can probably run against it. And
But always had a desire to go on stage.
well, actually, I did. I had terrible stage fright. I was performing a lot and doing different things in clubs when I was a young male. Young, I don't know what. Yeah. Now I've been living in New York. I moved to Chicago for a couple of years, and I've been living in New York for about 12, 13 years.
So you've been, I haven't seen your other films before. So.
Oh, they're great.
In New York as well.
Yeah, they're all shot in New York. Yeah, I've got 2 features: The American Astronaut and Stingray Sam. And Greg, the Cyclops, was in The American Astronaut, and Stingray Sam, my daughter, was in that one. She plays the carpenter's daughter. Scott Miller, who plays her father briefly in the film, was the other DP. He was also the DP for that film. And Graham, our giant, was the carpenter. He built all the sets for Stingray Sam. So it's a tight unit. I've got a couple more films I'm working on now. I've been talking about this werewolf film for 10 years, and it looks like I might be able to make it in Australia. They're talking about that. And I just wrote an opera, which is being produced by Justin Lin, who directs the Fast and the Furious films, and because natural trajectory for his career to produce. But I think the producers he's working with are getting a little nervous. I think they woke up one morning and they're like, "What the hell are we doing?" And they're going, "There's no hero in this." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's no hero in this." Like, "Yeah, but there's no hero." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." So conversations are starting to go around. But they were wonderful people. I'm very excited to work with them. They actually did help develop the script a lot. And
That made you add a car chase.
yeah, what's that?
That made you add a car chase to the movie.
Yeah, there's no car chases in this. It's all on foot. But anyway, so those are future films. Also, there's one that Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club's going to be making. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Oh yeah. Dude, if you look at CaptainAhabsMotorcycleClub.com, yes, you can Facebook it. Oh, you have been? Good. That's,
I must say one thing. This is my third favourite film.
Thanks. Thank you. This is any mom of Louis is a mom of mine.
Because this is the only film I've seen where I can see my child. Because I'm old enough to have run the streets. I came in a taxi and I told the cab driver I used to walk through the back of the tunnel. There were 6 cars going through it when I was a child. So this was real.
Thank you. That's.
And it was like my childhood.
Thank you. That makes me very happy to hear. So, yes.
Tell us a little about the music.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the music. Yeah, the Billionaire Show I was playing with for 20 years, and basically the Billionaire Show is me and the drummer Bobby Lurie, and we just about a year ago parted ways. This was the last thing we did together. Most of the soundtrack is electric auto harp and drums and vocals, and some piano. But he's got a recording studio, and he's busy doing that, and working together is very, because of everything else we were doing, it was very difficult to make movies more than one every 10 years. So I became more interested in that. So we're doing different things now. But this, yeah, I wrote most of the songs for the soundtrack. Like "Come On Train" was one that I wrote for the film. Some of the songs I made up playing with the kids. Like "I'm a Rocket" was one where my kids would go, "Run like a rocket," and I go, "Okay," and I would grab their hand and go, "1, 2, 1, 2, 3, I'm a rocket," and I'd start running, and they would run trying to keep on beat, and I'd be running faster than they could, so they'd be basically flying through the air and just on beat, bouncing off the sidewalk and flying, and it looked very dangerous, but they were fine.
No stunt doubles in this.
No, I'm the one who's not fine anymore. I flew off a skateboard a couple of years ago and smashed my hip, so it caught up to me.
Yeah, please correct me if I got this wrong, but I understand you were a student in George Kuchar's film class in San Francisco. With George passing away earlier this year, I wondered if you could say a few words of what that was like and say something about George.
Yeah, George, I was never a student of George's. I was a friend of George's. And George Kuchar is a wonderful filmmaker. And if you have a chance, there's a documentary called It Came From Kuchar. And, I like the documentary It Came From Kuchar more than I like their films, personally, because I like them as people, and it's just a great portrait of them as people. And George is so funny. I used to go by his class, and he'd be like, he would ask me to come and show my short films when I was making short films, and he'd go, "Oh, I want you to be in a movie, I want you to be in this film, So I ended up in 3 of his movies, proudly enough. But George, it was funny, Tom Aldridge, who we were talking about earlier, who is the old man who told the joke in the bar of the American Astronaut, he passed away last year. And George passed away last year, and I watched the Academy Awards just to see, I normally don't watch that stuff, but I wanted to see if they mentioned Tom Aldridge, and they didn't, but they mentioned George, which just blew me away, because he's definitely not an LA guy. So anyway, yeah, It Came From Kuchar. It's an amazing documentary on an incredible 2 guys, twin brothers. Yes?
You've got 10 minutes.
Oh, well, tell you what,
Play some music.
I'll sing you a couple songs for you. Let me tell you real quick. Thank you so much, sir. Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club is something that's definitely go online, look at CaptainAhabsMotorcycleClub.com. Also join us on Facebook. And it's starting off with graphic design and music. And there's a wonderful collection of chapter patches for Captain Ahab's Motorcycle. Did you draw one of those? Which one's yours?
West London.
I love that patch. Yeah, the Queequeg's back. Oh, we're gonna. I don't know if you drink beer, but tonight we must. Thank you. That's one of it's the pride of the collection. And we also have music, and so the songs, some of them aren't as nice. I can skip over those if we need to. But there's songs up there, and the songs, you can download them for free. You can send them out to your friends. Do whatever you want with them. Just don't sell them. But you can also download each individual track and a click track and scratch vocals, and people have begun sending us additional tracks for these. And people have also been sending their own mixes. And so the idea is I have these very simple tracks, which I brought with me, which are the beginning tracks. I didn't bring the new ones yet because I still have to work with those. But people are going to continue making these tracks, and I go around and I sing to them. So as they continue to mutate and evolve, I will continue singing to them. Eventually, we're all going to make a feature film, and this is just how we're working together doing the soundtrack for the film. Though this isn't, sorry, let me backtrack. This won't be the music for the film. This is for the club. The music for the film will be a whole different project, but this gives us a chance to meet each other and create a dialogue. And I'll show you a little bit how this works here, see if this works. This is just some of the basic tracks. They're mostly auto harp and organ, and some this and that. Oh, I'm not pushing that button again. I've learned my lesson last night. Let's see. Now you're traveling to distant stars, Didn't that mean breaking her heart? All alone she sits and cries for her diamond in the sky. And that's our sound check. Okay.